Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this third webinar of the JoinHealth 2024 Spring Series. This is co-organized by the Health Cluster Portugal and EIT Health. I'm Patrícia Patricio from the Health Cluster Portugal, and with me is also Marta Passadouro co-hosting this webinar from EIT Health in All Stars. She's an ecosystem leader for Portugal.
Good afternoon, everyone.
These webinars are part of the JoinHealth PT initiative, which is the Portuguese Digital Innovation Hub for Health and aims to support digital transformation in the healthcare sector. So first of all, I would like to thank our speakers today. I'm sure that their expertise will help us guide and understand the best practices in regulatory pathways for software as a medical device, as well as the implications of regulation in AI. This webinar will consist in three parts, and in the first part, Eduardo and Inês from Fraunhofer will provide us with insights into best practices in the development of software as a medical device and also in AI software. Then in the second part, we'll have Sandra Balseiro and Ana Brito focusing on the regulatory aspects of software as a medical device, including the AI Act. And last but not least, we'll have Cristiana Braga and Filipe Soares from Picking Window, and also Miguel Mascarenhas from Digest 8, two startups that are developing software as a medical device and who will share their experience with us. To you in the audience, thank you so much for attending this webinar. And before I hand it over to Eduardo, which will be our first speaker this afternoon, just a few notes to let you know that the presentations will be available to those of you who requested by filling out the survey that we will share after the webinar. Also, that the recording of this webinar will be available on the Health Cluster Portugal YouTube channel. And I would like to encourage you to leave your comments and questions for the speakers using the Q&A tool, because after each topic, Marta Passadouro will be moderating the Q&A session. So moving to the first two presentations of this afternoon, I would like to introduce you to Eduardo Barbosa. He's a software engineer and a researcher at Fraunhofer since 2015. Eduardo specialized in quality assurance and testing for industry and national funded projects. He has a focus on standardizing software engineering procedures and promoting testing techniques. And recently, he has been dedicated to understanding the implications of the new medical device regulation, the MDR, on developing software as a medical device. Inês Lopes is a biomedical engineer at Fraunhofer since 2016. She specialized in biosignal processing, machine learning for respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, and also natural language processing for nutrition recommendation. She now is focusing on implementing the new medical device regulation and the GDPR in that institution. Her current research centers on best practices for developing and deploying ethical, safe, and compliant AI systems. So thank you very much to both of you, and I'll hand it over to Eduardo.
Thank you, Patricia. Just gonna share my screen. So first of all, I'd like to thank Health Cluster Portugal for reaching out to us and inviting us to talk to you today about the good practices for software as a medical device. And as you know, this is a heavily regulated industry, and rightfully so. So we need to comply with various standards and regulations when developing our devices. And something that will help us achieve that is also following the best practices that we know of. And some of these best practices are applicable to any software. But when we speak of medical devices, we need to be extra careful and extra zealous about these things. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Eduardo, sorry to interrupt you, but we're not seeing your presentation yet.
Oh,
Yeah, now we
You
go.
see it now?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So, starting with the definition of software as a medical device, I took the definitions both from the IMDRF, the International Medical Device Regulations Forum, and the European Commission. So the IMDRF defines software as a medical device as software intended to be used for one or more medical purposes that perform these purposes without being part of a hardware medical device, while the European Commission defines software as a medical device as software that is intended to be used alone or in combination for a purpose as specified in the definition of a medical device in the MDR or the IVDR. So what these definitions tell us is that software can be a medical device of its own without having a hardware component. Sure, software always needs hardware to run on, but the hardware platform on which it runs does not necessarily have to be part of the medical device. So when we start ideating about a software that we want to develop, especially when it comes to medical devices, we should start thinking about, besides its intended use and its intended users, what features we should include to have a holistic view of the system we want to create. And to do so, we need to start defining its requirements. And what exactly is a requirement? So according to the International Requirements Engineering Board, a requirement is either a need perceived by a stakeholder, a capability or property that a system shall have, or a documented representation of the need, the capability, or the property. So in order to gather our requirements, we should go through several stages. This is an iterative process. Usually this is not something that you do only once, since the goal is to obtain a common shared vision between everyone in the team and between the stakeholders. It will surely take more than one or two goes to get everything right. So first you should identify the sources for the requirements. Maybe we can identify some potential users. Maybe we can consult experts in diseases or the conditions that we wish to monitor or treat with our software. So all of these people can have a say on the shape of the system we want to develop. And then we can check the documentation that is available to us. It can be company, domain, or project related. For instance, medical device regulation may be a source of requirements for the device. And lastly, other systems can also be used to shape the idea of the system. So it's always a good idea in general to know what similar products are in development or already in the market. In the second phase here in red is the elicitation part. So eliciting consists of gathering the requirements and ideally writing them down together. So there are many ways to gather the requirements, from interviews to observation of potential users, or even employing idea generating techniques such as workshops, brainstorming sessions with the stakeholders. So there are many, many ways to do this. And thirdly, on the green box, there's the third and last phase, which is the validation of set requirements, which we can do by using a prototype, or maybe the stakeholders can just review the documents that we've been preparing, or mock-ups or simulations of the device that we have. So there are many ways to do this as well. And very often here we'll get comments to the effect of, oh, this is not really what we were talking about when we talked about feature X or Y. So here, because we have something that users can interact with directly, we can ensure that we have a shared vision between everyone. And when we talk about requirement types, according to the International Requirements Engineering Board, the IREB, there are three. There are functional requirements, quality requirements, and constraints. I'm only going to talk about functional and quality here, since this will cover most situations. So according to the IREB, functional requirements concern the result or behavior that shall be provided by a function of a system. It has to do with data or the interaction of a system with its environment. It can be its users or other systems. So this means that functional requirements generally respond to the question, what will the system do in a given situation? There is no right or wrong way to document a requirement. Here is an example of the way we document requirements, functional requirements at Fraunhofer. And it pertains to logging into a mobile app that is software as a medical device. So as you can see, we identify the requirement, we put an ID, a small description, A prototype can be a mock-up, so readers can, or stakeholders can see exactly what this pertains to. We also add the inputs, so what is needed to execute this requirement, let's say, and the processing steps that need to be done, the expected outputs that we have. So here the user, after filling in their email and password and tapping login, is supposed to be redirected to the main screen, a dashboard, for example. And it's also useful to predict some possible failures and error handling, how we handle the errors after these failures occur. So what will we do when the user inserts an invalid email, or when the email is not even in the system? Or what if we put the wrong password in? What happens? And what happens if the user does not have an internet connection on their smartphone, for instance? So there are simpler ways to document this. A simpler way to document requirements is to write them as simple phrases, such as in this user story format. So here we have, for example, the same requirement that we saw on the previous slide. So as a patient, this is a role. I would like to log into the mobile app. So this is the requirement itself, so that I may view the dashboard with my health data. So this is the benefit that the user gets from this requirement. Writing the requirement in this way, it makes it easier to understand by everyone with a simple phrase, although this may come with the disadvantage of losing some detail, and it also increases the probability of different interpretations occurring by different stakeholders. On the other hand, quality requirements, which are also commonly known as non-functional requirements, they pertain to quality concerns that are not covered by the functional requirements. They usually describe how a system will perform rather than what it will do. These are some examples of quality requirements: usability, reliability, maintainability, but there can be a lot more. So here in this case, you'll need to address for each of these type of quality requirements, you'll need to think about the concerns that you'll need to address for each of them. So it will not be easy to validate them in an objective manner. In fact, even the IRAB concedes that forcing an objective, measurable validation for every one of them is difficult, and it can even be counterproductive. So feel free to perform objective measurements when it comes to, for instance, performance or scalability requirements. These are usually easy to measure, but don't be afraid to offload some of this responsibility to other kinds of activities that you'll need to perform anyway, such as usability studies. For the case of usability, you can say, oh, we'll validate this in usability studies. And one great advantage of having these requirements defined and organized is the ability to trace the work that's being done. In this case, you can see in this table, a traceability matrix gives everyone in the team an overview of the work that has or has not been done, and the tests are currently failing. So in this case, what this matrix is picturing is that we have two requirements, R1 and R2, and three tests, T1, T2, and T3. And that requirement R1 is validated by T1, and requirement R2 is validated by T2 and T3. So in the case of requirement R1, everything is being fulfilled, so no problems there. In the case of R2, we see that one of the tests is not passing, so the requirement is not fulfilled. So this is a very useful way of tracking the fulfillment of the requirements. Now, having a good baseline for the requirements means we have the confidence to start implementing features and start coding. One great example of a good practice for coding is to follow a coding style, which is no more than a set of predefined rules or guidelines for writing code. So one can argue that the piece of code on top is harder to read than that below, and they do the same. They do exactly the same, but are written in different ways. So when we enforce a coding style, there are several advantages here. So it makes code more readable, it makes it more consistent, so it's easier to maintain, it's easier to collaborate between team members that are using the same coding style. And also this consistency helps in spotting errors and inconsistencies more efficiently. I've included some examples of common languages used and the most popular coding styles that have been defined for each of them. So for example, for Kotlin, we have the Kotlin style guide and so on. And as Patricia said, this presentation will be shared with you after the event, so you can personally follow these links and read a little bit more into these coding styles if you wish. Now we can expand on this idea of reviewing code and following good practices to include formal methods of testing. There are officially 5 levels of testing according to the ISTQB, but I want to focus on the 3 last ones, so system testing, system integration testing, and acceptance testing. And these are tests that focus on the overall behavior and capabilities of an entire system and its interaction with the users and other systems. So we can use many strategies, but if you don't have any testing know-how or strategy pre-planned, I recommend on executing this either manually or in an automated fashion. But I'm going to show you a simple way to think about the test cases, executing them, and reporting on them. So here is an example in of an acceptance test that can be performed internally, for instance, in an alpha test or with external users in a beta test. This test case partially covers the requirement we've seen a few slides back, describing a user logging into an app. So on the left, you can see the prerequisites for running the test. So you have to have a valid account, valid email address, and so on. In the middle, you can see the steps necessary to run the test. They have to be run exactly as in this sequence. So you open the app, you enter the email address, the password, and you tap the login button. And on the right, you see the expected result of this test. The user is redirected to the welcome screen. Now, this is the theory, but when you run the test, many things may happen. So maybe you witness exactly what's been described in the expected results, and that's great. The test is passing. You can document that the test has indeed passed, and you can move on to the next one. But maybe this is not exactly what happens. Maybe you can run into an error. Maybe you see a 401 error, unauthorized, and this is strange because you're using a valid account, a correct password, an internet connection. So in this case, you should report back to the developers and add some other useful information in your report. For instance, the version of the software that you're using to test. And yeah, there are tools that you can use to document all of these processes. TestRail is one of them, and that we use at Fraunhofer. However, these tools can be expensive. And if you don't have many tests, you can probably get by with using Excel sheets. Although it's not ideal, it's a start. So when testing, remember, it's always better to find errors internally rather than when your product is already on the market with real users. Now, moving on to cybersecurity. This is a huge topic. I don't have much time to talk about it. There have been some recommendations that came out recently, for instance, from the FDA. But many of these recommendations converge on a few topics. So they focus on risk analysis or a risk management type of approach. So if you know risk management from ISO 14971, this is no different from that. So focus on potential threats, vulnerabilities, assess the impact or likelihood of cybersecurity risks occurring, and implement measures to mitigate them. The FDA also talks about the software bill of materials, which is basically a list of all the dependencies, libraries, frameworks that we use. So the aim is to identify the risks and attack surfaces in the system caused by the inclusion of this software created by third parties that were not created by you. And also manufacturers are also encouraged to take more proactive measures with regards to the information that they provide to the patients and how they can prevent cybersecurity issues coming from the use of the device itself. So talking about interoperability, there's no need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to defining a structure for storing or exchanging data. Many standards are already in use by healthcare organizations around the world. These are two examples. For example, FHIR is a popular and open standard for exchanging healthcare information, most commonly used for exchanging electronic health records. And DICOM is primarily used for handling, storing, or transmitting medical images, such as X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, and it also provides a protocol for transmitting these images between devices. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you again. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A feature in Zoom. And I also welcome any inquiries made to my email, and I try to get to them as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. We'll now hear from Inês, and at the end of Inês' presentation, we'll have time for Q&A and discussion.
So I'm already sharing. I don't think.
Yeah,
Yes?
I can. Yeah, we can see your presentation.
Okay, great. So, why? Oh, no. Oh, sorry, it's not this one. Apologies. I don't know what's happening. I think I closed everything. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, now we're seeing your desktop, I think.
My desktop.
Yeah.
And my email. Sorry.
Just your desktop, no worries.
Let me. Okay. Now. What?
Yeah, now we're seeing your presentation.
No. Which presentation it is?
AI software, good practices.
On the full screen?
Yeah.
Okay, not the presenter mode.
No, it's the right full screen mode.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to. I want to see. Okay. So, so apologies. So in this presentation, I will be talking about best practices applied to AI software. But first, let's understand why it is important to incorporate good practices into the AI system lifecycle as a means to develop systems that are ethically responsible. So the development of ethical and responsible AI systems is considered one of the greatest scientific challenges. And to address these challenges, it was published multiple frameworks of AI ethics principles, and the consensus tends to fall into these 8 categories: privacy, accountability, safety and security, transparency and explainability, fairness and non-discrimination, human control and human control of technology, professional responsibility, and the promotion of human values. Sorry. These frameworks tend to do their due to their principle-based approach, allow for technology neutral and context-specific interpretation and operationalization. However, without best practices, it can be extremely complex to implement these principles throughout the development life cycle. Best practices can be delivered in different forms, and they can be guidebooks, checklists, questions, documentation, templates, or software tools. And the next slides will understand some of them. So to present to you the best practices, I will use a pattern-based approach introduced by a group of researchers who published several papers on this methodology. I will invite you to look at their best practices repository at the link available at the bottom of this slide. So the patterns can be grouped into three categories: governance, structures and processes to ensure that the usage and development of AI systems are aligned with ethical principles; process patterns, methods and best practices that can be incorporated by the development team into the development process; product patterns, which are guidances at system level on the architecture design of AI systems. At the industry level, we have AI laws and regulations which enforce rules and policy to ensure the responsible development and use of AI systems. And here you have the AI Act in Europe. We will be talking a little bit today. And then we have the Bills of Rights in the US. We also can have regulatory sandboxes, which allow for the testing of innovative AI products in a real-world setting with relaxed regulatory requirements, and the EU Act actually mentions it. Then we have AI standards. As examples, we have the ISO AI Technical Committee standards, which includes one of the most relevant ones, the ISO 42001, AI Management Systems, or the AI Artificial Intelligence Standards Committee, with their own set of standards too. AI certifications are also a formal attestation of compliance performed by independent authorities, and we also have examples like Malta AI ITA certification or the ISO 42001 certification. Building codes are mandatory requirements that can be adopted in laws and legislations or by AI certification authorities as inspection standards. We have, for example, the I3E building code for medical device software security. Another pattern that can be used is the AI maturity model, which assesses an organization's capability and readiness to use AI responsibly. These models can be used to certify an organization and can use building codes as inspection standards. And for example, we have the IBM or the Microsoft AI maturity model. Now, leadership commitment is paramount to build an ethical AI culture and to establish ethics principles and governance structure. Management teams can act by assigning an ethics risk committee, which will be responsible for defining standard decision-making processes and reviewing AI projects in the organization. They can also enforce a code of ethics that all employees should uphold. They can propose accountability contracts to define the boundaries of responsibilities and to hold individuals accountable for their actions according to the organization's code of AI ethics. An AI risk assessment is executed by the Ethics Committee with the aim to measure the potential AI risks associated with the development and use of AI systems. And it can be guided by checklists or questions, and there are already available some tools and frameworks to support it, like the Serial Question Bank and also the ISO 23894 standard. Ethical AI training is also fundamental at the organization level as a means to improve awareness and employee skills in implementing responsible AI. The tight coupling of AI and non-AI development can ensure a clear understanding of project deliverables and progress. And this can be done by sharing sprints or use a co-versioning registry. And we have, for example, CD and CI services such as Amazon and Azure that facilitate the continuous integration of different steps of the ML development workflow. Continuous documentation is important for tracking development activities and ensure the continuous involvement of AI systems are responsible. There have been various types of templates for documenting data and models, such as the Google Model Card, data statements, data sheets for data sets, AI service fact sheets, and also data AI service fact sheets. So As mentioned before, process patterns are best practices that can be implemented during the development life cycle. And the development life cycle can be deconstructed into 4 phases: the requirements phase, the design, the implementation, the testing, and the operation. And there are best practices that can be implemented in each one. So at the requirement stage, it is important to perform an AI suitability assessment, since AI technology is not always the best fit for every problem. And using AI in a software system can introduce additional complex and also risk. So as examples, we have Google Pair Guidebook and the questions for assessing suitability of AI applications in healthcare. And this is a paper. A comprehensive data requirement specification document can be created to manage and document detailed requirements on each phase of the data lifecycle, namely data collection, cleaning, preparation, validation, analysis, and termination. And an example is the Google's template for dataset requirement specification. We can also document AI ethics requirements using user stories. And an example is the Guide for Artificial Intelligence Ethical Requirements Elicitation, which is composed of 25 cards. At the design stage, envisioning cards support the development team in incorporating human values into the design process of AI systems. The cards are based on at least 4 envisioning criteria, including stakeholder, time, value, and pervasiveness. And an example, we have the VST Labs envisioning cards. The system-level ethical AI simulation is a cost-effective way to comprehend the characteristics and behaviors of AI systems and to assess potential risks before deploying them in the real world. Examples are the NVIDIA Drive Sim and also the RFE Pro, but they are applied in self-driving domain. When clear explanations are provided to clarify how AI systems make decisions, users are more likely to trust and adopt technology. One common approach to designing explainable user interfaces is using checklists or questions. These lists can assist in identifying user needs and choosing appropriate explainable AI techniques. Some examples are the Wizard of Oz study, in which users interact with a system that they believe to be autonomous, but is actually being operated by a hidden human called the wizard. We can also have checklists of questions in the input, output, the how, the performance, why and why not, and what if, and so on. At the implementation stage, we can use AI governance via APIs to restrict the way AI systems are used by controlling the interactions with these systems. An example is the OpenAI's ChatGPT language model, where only API-approved users can integrate it into their AI systems. At the testing stage, we can conduct acceptance testing of ethical requirements to determine if they are met, and also perform an ethical assessment of test cases to help improve the overall quality of the test case by identifying and address any ethical issues in the AI systems. At the operation stage, the continuous deployment using different strategies allows for faster delivery of models with better quality. The phased development strategy is where the new version of AI systems is rolled out incrementally and runs alongside the old version. In the A/B testing deployment strategy, there is the deploying of different versions of the AI model to production, and then performance is compared. Some examples of tools to support these tasks is the Amazon SageMaker or the Microsoft Azure machine learning. An AI system can be defined in 3 layers: the supply chain, where it generates the software components of the AI system, the system layer, where the AI system is deployed, and the operation infrastructure, composed of auxiliary functions or feedback information. To the AI system, sorry. These patterns are guidance on architecture design and can be added to the AI ecosystem as product features. At the supply chain level, an ethical AI bill of materials registry keeps a digital record of the supply chain details of the components used in building an AI system, such as a component name, the version, the supplier, the dependency relationship, author, and timestamp. And we have some examples that provided the digital record of these materials. Oh, sorry. We also have the co-versioning registry, which can track the co-evolution of components or AI artifacts at different levels. From the viewpoint of the AI system, it is important to know the version of the AI component integrated into the system. And from the viewpoint of the AI component, it's important to know what data sets and parameters were used to train the AI model and what data was used to evaluate the AI model. Some examples are the ML Flow Model Registry on Databricks, the Data Version Control, DFC, and Pachyderm's Data Lineage and others. We can also have federated learners, which preserve data privacy by training models locally on client devices, and then generate a global model on a central server based on the updates of local models. We have, for this purpose, we have TensorFlow federated, and we have Fate or Flywheel. At system level, adding an AI mode switcher to the AI system offers users efficient invocation and dismissal mechanisms for activating or deactivating the AI component when needed. So, for example, Baidu, the autonomous minibus, requires a staff in the seat to supervise the self-driving operation, and the bus can be switched to manual driving mode by braking. To improve the reliability of the AI component, multimodal decision maker is used to employ different AI models to perform the same task or enable a single decision. Some examples are the ML-based AWS fraud detection, which includes two models, one supervised and another supervised, to augment the prediction results. The IBM Watson includes predictions from multiple emotion detection models, for example. The deploying of redundant and homogeneous AI components is also a solution to deal with highly uncertain AI components that may make unethical decisions, or adversary hardware components that produce malicious data or behave unethically. And for example, Tesla Autopilot has 2 AI chips on each Tesla computer to make decisions based on a consensus of the 2 AI chips. At the operation infrastructure level, continuous ethical AI validator allows the continuous monitoring and validation of AI system outcomes against ethical requirements. As examples, we have the AWS SegMaker model monitor for bias drift, the Qualdo for data quality and data drift, and the Azure machine learning, which is end-to-end monitoring platform. We also have the ethical AI knowledge base, which produces meaningful entities and concepts and their relationships in design, implementation, deployment, and operation of AI systems. And examples of knowledge bases, we have the Awesome AI Guidelines, the Responsible AI Community Portal, the Responsible AI Knowledge Base. The AI black box can be used also to investigate why and how an AI system caused an accident or a near miss by recording sensor data, internal status data, decisions, and behaviors. And an example of that is the social robot Robotips. Before running or during the operation of an AI system in the real world, an AI digital twin could be used to perform system-level simulation to understand the behaviors of AI systems and assess potential ethical risks in a cost-effective way. Some examples, we have the NVIDIA Drive Sim or the Air Sim for drones. We also can have ethical AI sandboxes, which allows the isolation of AI components from non-AI components by running the AI components separately in a safe and isolated environment using virtual machines. And an example, for example, is the FastCase AI Sandbox, which is a secure platform for the users to upload data set and do data analysis in a safe environment. A global view auditor provides a global view accountability by finding discrepancies among the data collected from multiple AI components or AI systems and identifying liability when negative events occur. Some example is the audit platform for AI models in healthcare domain of the focus group of AI for health. SecLIA provides also an audit tool for identifying decisions and model behaviors in AI. So while presenting the patterns, I illustrated some examples of tools that support the implementation of best practices, but there are many more. And in this graph, we can see the different categories of tools that support the development of responsible and ethical AI systems. Due to time constraints, it's impossible to present them all to you, but this way we can understand with a simple view the landscape of these types of tools. And finally, I will leave you with a list of end-to-end platforms that, as the name states, provides functionalities for the entire development cycle of AI systems. And I also highlighted the open source ones. Some are more complete than others, but the choice relies also on the existing tools that you already implement in the organization. And therefore, if they have integration, if you already use something that and some they may be favorable on the integration of these new platforms. And with this slide, I end the presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, Inês. Thank you very much for your amazing presentation, and also for Eduardo. So I have here a question from a person in the audience, Carla Clemente, and she's asking, what is the difference between a regular software for medical purpose and an AI software for medical purposes? What are the rules to classify a software as an AI software? I don't know if this question could be directly responded by Eduardo. Also, maybe later on we could have the help of Sandra here on the next stage. But Eduardo, please feel free to speak out.
I think probably this would be better responded by Inês, maybe. But I would say, well, if you use machine learning, if you use AI in your software, that would be the threshold, right, for defining a software as a medical device or a software. I don't know what term was used in the question originally.
What is the difference between a regular software for medical purpose and AI software for medical purpose? So,
well, I think the difference it's the use of AI. If I have a software that contains an AI component, then it's AI software for medical purposes. If the software doesn't contain this kind of component, then I can define it as a regular software. So I will distinct between the AI component property. I believe so.
Okay, thank you so much. And for the sake of time,
I think Sandra
yes,
wants
Sandra.
to say
Okay,
something.
okay, Sandra. Yes.
Maybe I can complete a little bit, because I understand that the person wants to know in terms of regulation, because they want to know about the classification. In terms of the regulation, is the same. Is a software as a medical device with or without AI? Okay, it's the same thing. It's the same classification. It's the same rules. You have to classify regarding the clinical purpose and the risk related to the software, not related to the AI. AI doesn't increase the risk, of course, in terms of classification of the device. I think that is the main question, the same rules,
Mhm.
same specifications, and the only thing that you have more testing and verifications. Of course, as Ines said, it is a different real world related to this normal or general software, but in terms of regulation, it is the same thing. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. So, and now I was just saying, for the sake of time, I'll leave the floor to Patricia to present our next speakers. Patricia, please. The floor is yours.
So thank you so much. And we will now move to the second part of this webinar. And in the second part, the presentations will be done by Sandra Balseiro and Ana Brito. Sandra Balseiro is an expert in regulatory affairs for medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. And she's the leader of the regulatory unit at Instituto Pedro Nunes Laboratory of Automation and Systems. Sandra has successfully assisted over 100 companies in navigating this complex regulatory process for medical devices. And then we will have Ana Brito. She has a background in biomedical engineering and health sciences, and she brings over 8 years of experience in quality management and regulatory affairs within the medical devices and biotech sectors. Her expertise spans European regulations, both MDR and IVDR, as well as FDA guidelines. So thank you so much, Sandra and Anna, and I will hand it over to Sandra now.
Okay, let me share my screen now. Now in full screen, hopefully. You're seeing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Since I have only 20 minutes, I'm going to get a little quick overview about the regulatory framework regarding the software as a medical device. And the question, it was already answered by Eduardo. Nevertheless, I'm going to make a little overview. And the first question, when we have a software, and if we want to see if we have to follow regulation like medical device or in vitro, the first thing that we have to answer is, what is a medical device software? Okay, so in terms of European regulation, a medical device software is a software that is intended to be used, for a clear medical purpose. Okay, so basically we have a software that has some function or leads to have hardware to have a function related to a clinical purpose. This is the main thing that you have to be aware. And of course, this software could be a standalone and could be used in a alone based as a platform or application in your computer or in your smartphone or whatever, but also, of course, in combination with other medical devices that are hardware. Okay, so we have both type of softwares that could be a medical device software. Basically, as I told you, we have two kinds of softwares that also have different kinds of conformity assessment, because one is for their own purpose as a medical device, because it's a standalone. It doesn't need another hardware medical device to be aware as clinical purpose. And we have softwares that have drive influence to hardwares, that these hardwares are their own purpose medical devices. So we have a standalone or softwares that drives influence to hardwares or integrated or in a medical device that are complemented with this regulatory framework. More specifically, I have already talked a little bit about this, but we have two kinds of softwares, and also European regulation have different frameworks regarding the regulatory frame for these two kinds of softwares. One that is a designated SAM, that's the international nomenclature, not the European one, okay? And the SAM is a software that for its own has a medical purpose, okay? So it doesn't need an hardware to be a medical device. And normally there are a lot of examples in our days of this kind of softwares. There are standalones, and normally they are platforms in the web platform or applications or so on that only need a normal IT hardware to perform their clinical purpose. And also, this is important for us to know that even there are different nomenclatures, and please be aware of it, because once you want to submit the process within, for instance, FDA or within Europe, you need to know that we have different nomenclatures regarding this kind of softwares, and it's important for you to normally have the designation that is accepted for that kind of market. The specification of a standalone is quite the same, with a little bit difference in the designation, but is the same, okay? And we also have softwares in medical devices, and these software, as I told you, normally they doesn't have an obvious clinical purpose by their own, but the hardware which they are implemented or integrated are the ones that have the clinical purpose. So normally these kind of softwares are intended to be classified as the hardware or adopt the classification of the hardware. Nevertheless, some of these integrated softwares have their own medical purpose. In that case, we have to follow the same rules as the standalone software, okay? And then we can choose we have to choose the highest level of classification to submit this kind of softwares into the competent authority. For European, the notified bodies, or for the US, the FDA. Okay? So this is very important. It normally is the question that some of manufacturers made me, how to qualify my software as a medical device software, because we know that we have a lot of softwares that have the same kind of characteristics and the same kind of measurements that could be not medical device, that could be wellness, for instance, and the same software that sometimes have the same things, that measure the same things, are medical devices. So what are the rules that gave me the power or not to include the software in the medical device regulation? MDCG 2019/11 have tree of decision that help us to qualify our software if it's a medical device or not. So when you are dealing with the question, should I have my software included to the medical regulation, please check this tree of decision in order to see if your medical device can be included or not into this regulation, IVD and MD. The second question, after we said yes is a medical device software, we have to know which regulation the software could be included. Because, as I said, it could be a medical device, medical device or an in vitro medical device software. So also these MDCG have a tree of decision that gave me the power to understand to which one regulation should I put my software. I have only a note that sometimes most of the IVD softwares are also medical devices. So you have to be careful because, as I'm going to tell you, softwares have a lot of modules that could be classified by their own. And normally also this kind of software can be linked to both regulation, IVD and MD regulation, according to the clinical purpose of that module or part of the software. Okay, so after we qualify our software as a medical device software, even if it's MD or IVD, I have to classify it. And independently if it's as AI or not, we have to follow the rules of MDR or IVDR, depending on which regulation we follow, okay, according to the tree of decision. So in terms of MDR, we have to be aware of firstly, the notes, the previous notes of the rules, the rule 3.3 and the rule 3.5. The rule 3.3 says that the software that drives or influences a use of a device shall follow with the same class of this device. As I told you, if the software is integrated or influences the function of an hardware that is a medical device, should have the same classification, okay? And the rule 3.6 said that the medical devices that are classified by their own should apply all the rules that are applicable to it and choose the highest classification. So if we have a module, as I told you, that is a class 1 and another one that is a class 3, the software should follow and the classification of class 3, not the class 1, okay? So this is important for you to know that. So once we have a medical device, we should follow the active devices rules, okay? These active devices rules are the rule 9 to 13 of the Annex 8 of the MDR. So if we have an hardware that the software is linked to, we have to follow the rules of the classification of this hardware, okay? So we use the rules 9 to 13. If we have a standalone, we use the rule 11, okay? So if the software for its own have a clinical purpose, I should follow the rule 11. And rule 11 said that most of the softwares are at least class 2A because they say that software intended to provide information to take diagnosis or therapeutic purpose are class 2A. So normally, most of the softwares that have their own clinical purpose are linked to these rules, so at least they are class 2A. There are some exceptions that could be class 1, but as I told you, there are exceptions, okay? Basically, we have in the MDCG also a table that made me a link between the international nomenclature and classification of the software and the MDR classification. So it could be helpful for you if you have, for instance, classified your product regarding these international rules to see which one category of classification your software will follow once you wanted to put it in Europe European market. The same thing for IVD. If I have an IVD, I have to classify it, and it's easier than the medical device because the rules of IVD are more clear and straightforward. And in this case, the software will be classified according to the hardware or the clinical purpose of this software. So it is very straightforward. It requires all the classification of the hardware as the MD, and it will also acquire the classification of the test that he will provide the results. Okay, so it's easier than the medical devices, is more straightforward, and we have 7 rules here. And as I told you, for instance, if I have a software that is going to help me to make the screening of blood, we have rule 1 and is direct, is a class D. So easier, straightforward. Nevertheless, check the MDCG guidelines because they have some examples that could help you to implement these rules, and with practical examples that gave you some clues about the classification that you should follow, and your product will be classified. So basically, and a note regarding the question from the audience, AI doesn't have impact in the regulatory of MDR and IVDR, even they moreover, the AI doesn't have impact in the classification. Nevertheless, we have a new regulation that is going to be implemented, and Anna is going to talk about a little bit about that. But in terms of classification and regulatory path, according to medical device regulation and in vitro, doesn't have any impact on it. So, can I have medical device software that have more than one classification? And as I told you, the answer is yes. Nevertheless, we have to follow the more higher classification. And of course, as you know, software have different sets and different parts that could be designated as modules. And this module can be also medical device or not medical device, and you should only follow the regulation for those modules that are medical devices. Okay, so this is very important for you to know that if you are going to submit your process into the notified body, you have to make clear which parts or which models of the software are medical devices or not, and classify which one of them. Okay, so you have to classify all of the modules, all of the parts of the software in order to have a complete submission process to the notified body. Okay, and this is mandatory. And also, if you have some parts that are not medical device, you should note that, and you should clarify that this part, even if it's not a medical device, it makes part of the whole of the software, but I have not to to follow the requirements of the medical device or in vitro. Okay, so it's very normal to have several models and in the softwares, and the ones that are not medical devices and others with different classification. So basically, it's important for you to know that some modules with different intended uses or if different clinical purpose can be or not be medical devices. And I'm only give you a little list about this and some examples that are the common examples that normally people bring to us. And for instance, hospital information system, that is normal for to access the patient history within an hospital or a health unit, is not a medical device. Nevertheless, you have to be careful, because if you have some kind of features that are not only for archive the information, but have some, for instance, an AI that makes some knowledge or some compartmental or in this software could be medical device, but in general, these kind of softwares are not medical device. Or the decision support software, these are normal softwares as medical devices, and this is the green for you to know. Red is not, green is yes every time, and the yellow is almost every time. The decision support software, of course, is a medical device software. And the information system, for instance, if it's only for archiving something, is not medical device. But as I told you, if you have some models, and in this kind of software is normal that this information system has some models that gave me some kind of information or scale me the patients with different grades of for instance, disease, they could be medical devices, but we have to analyze all the functions related to that. The same thing for the communication system, but if it's a telemedicine system, is a medical device, class 1, but medical devices. And the web system for monitoring of data, of course, normally the data are clinical data, and they are software as medical device. But if this web system is only for non-clinical data, of course, it's not a medical device. But for most of the cases, they are medical devices. The same thing for in vitro. If it's only for laboratory information, to archive testing or something, or to maintain and organize my scale of the lab, is not a medical device. But of course, if it's an expert system that is going to pick the information from hardware and make a general overview and give me some feedback, is a medical, is an in vitro. So only quick examples. Of course, this is all world of information, and we have to know and to check all these in more detail.
And I will, sorry to interrupt. I will ask you to please rush a bit your
Yeah.
presentation
Only,
because we're
only
running
to
out. Thank you.
only to finish. So if we have other standards, the answer is yes. As you know, we have more than the regulation. We have the standards 13485, the 14971. That is the risk management that Eduardo has already talked, the 62366, and of course the 62304. That is one of the norms that are linked to the medical device software. And only to finish, this norm will going to give you some requirements that you should follow in order to plan your development and to have, for instance, the testing and verification regarding these kind of devices. So thank you, and I pass the word to my colleague Anna.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Just a moment. Are you seeing my screen? Okay. So
Okay.
it's okay?
Yeah, now it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the theme of this presentation is European Regulation and AI Act. But of course, in this context, in the context of this webinar, it should be understood as Medical Devices Regulation, MDR, and In Vitro Diagnosis Medical Devices Regulation, IVDR, and AI Act. These are the topics that will be covered throughout the presentation, which include similarities and complementarities between the MDR and IVDR and AI Act, and also the conformity assessment and obtaining CE marking for medical devices and in vitro diagnostic medical devices with AI components. But let's start with the AI Act timeline. As you can see on the left, in 2021 was made the Commission proposal on AI Act. In turn, in 2023, the co-legislators reached a political agreement. And already this year, in 2024, in March, the Parliament adopted the AI Act. And right now, at this exactly moment, the regulation is still subject to a final lawyer linguistic check and is expected to be finally adopted before the end of the year during 2024. So the AI Act will enter into force 20 days after its publication in the European Official Journal, hopefully still in 2024, and be fully applicable and will be applied gradually between 6 and 36 months after publication, between 2024 and 2027. More specifically, 6 months after the publication, the general provisions of Title I and the prohibited AI practices of Title II will apply. Already after 12 months, Title III, Chapter 4, regarding the obligations of notifying authorities and notified bodies come into application, as well as the Title VI on the European AI Board and national regulators, and Title X on penalties. General application will apply after 24 months, possible in 2026, and finally, after 36 months, the obligations for high-risk systems, which includes medical devices with AI component, will apply. But let's talk about risk classification under the AI Act, which is different of risk classification under the MDR and the IVDR. So according to the AI Act, there are 4 levels of risk. As expected, of course, the greater the risk associated with the AI system, the greater will be the complexity of the requirements imposed by the AI Act. As you can see, at the base of the pyramid, we have minimal risk AI system, such as, for example, spam filters or video games, which have no obligations under the AI Act. Next, in the second level, we have limited risk AI systems with an obligation of transparency, and an example are the chatbots. The next class is high-risk devices, and this is where medical devices with an AI component are included. For this, a conformity assessment is required with, of course, the involvement of a notified body. And finally, At the top of the pyramid, we have unacceptable risk systems, such as facial recognition, which are prohibited under the AI Act. But a question arises. Why are medical devices and in vitro diagnostic medical devices with AI component high-risk systems under the AI Act? As you can see, according to Article 6 of the AI Act, all products covered by a legislation that is listed in the Annex 2 of the same regulation and that are subject to a conformity assessment procedure by a notified body must be classified as high-risk AI systems. And in fact, the MDR and the IVDR are listed in that Annex 2. Which means that all medical devices in class higher than 1 and in vitro diagnostic medical devices in class higher than A, with an AI component of course, are high-risk AI systems under the AI Act. The simple class 1 medical devices and simple class A IVDs are excluded as they are not subject to conformity assessment under the MDR or the IVDR. So let's talk about similarities and complementarities between the AI Act with the MDR or IVDR requirements. Some of the AI Act requirements for high-risk AI systems, that includes medical devices, are described at Chapter 2 of AI Act. And some of these requirements are also included, at least in part, throughout the MDR and the IVDR. For example, on the left, AI Act Article 9 talks about risk management system, which is not new for those who work with medical devices or in vitro diagnostic medical devices. As you know, in the MDR and in the IVDR, the requirements for risk management are described in Annex 1, General for Safety and Performance Requirements. On the other hand, Article 10 of the AI Act is about data and data governance and specifies that high-risk AI systems, which make use of techniques involving the training of models with data, shall be developed on the basis of training, validation, and testing data sets that meet specific criteria that is specified across the AI Act. So, in that case, although there is no literal parallelism, some of these points are contained also in Annex 1 of MDR and IVDR, and also in the clinical evaluation requirements of the MDR and the performance evaluation requirements of the IVDR. In turn, Article 11 of the AI Act talks about technical documentation, which has a parallel, of course, in Annexes 2 and 3 of the MDR and IVDR. And we will talk a little bit more about that later. Article 12 refers to record keeping, which can fall under life cycle management and the post-market surveillance documentation of the MDR and the IVDR. Continuing, Article 13 of the AI Act establishes the requirements for transparency and the provision of information to users. So this last part, the information to users, finds parallels once again in the General for Safety and Performance requirements of the MDR and the IVDR. In turn, Article 14 of the AI Act establishes the requirements for something that, in my opinion, is very important in AI systems, the human oversight. And part of this content was already included in the usability requirements and risk management process of the MDR and the IVDR. Finally, Article 15 talks about accuracy, robustness, and cybersecurity. This later one, cybersecurity, is also included in the Annex 1 and in the risk management of the MDR and the IVDR. There are, however, completely new requirements under the AI Act. So let's see some of them that are on the Annex 8 of this regulation. First, the notified body must have full access through the technical documentation, of course, to the training dataset, which is new. The same notified body may request additional evidence or tests to assess the compliance with the requirements of Chapter 2 of the AI Act. On the other hand, whenever requested in a reasoned manner, of course, the notified body may have access to the system's source code, which is also new and introduced with the AI Act. And finally, if the AI system does not meet the data requirements, it will be necessary to retrain the system before conducting a new conformity assessment. And the notified body will be required to include in the assessment decision considerations about the quality of the data used and the reasons for non-conformity in the initial system assessment. What about the technical documentation? What changes between the AI Act and the AI Act and the other regulations, MDR and the IVDR? The technical documentation requirements under the AI Act are listed in Annex 4 of this regulation. And as you can see, comparing the left side of this presentation and the right side of this presentation, many of these requirements are also included in the technical documentation requirements established by the MDR and the IVDR, and which are found in Annexes 2 and 3 of these regulations. In practical terms, the technical documentation requirements under the AI Act focus on the following points on the left. Description of the AI system, which is also included in medical device or in vitro diagnostic medical device description under the MDR or IVDR. The technical documentation under the AI Act also includes specification of software requirements, software design and architecture, software development, monitoring, functioning and control, software verification and validation that is also included in point 6, MD or IVD verification and validation of MDR or IVDR technical documentation. Next, risk management system. In the number 8, history of changes on the system. And finally, the technical documentation under the AI Act also includes post-market monitoring documentation, which is also part of the MDR and IVDR technical documentation. So some of these points and some of these things are not completely new under the AI Act. Let's talk about conformity assessment and CE marking. The conformity of the AI systems in medical devices or in vitro diagnostic medical devices must be assessed as part of the conformity assessment already provided for under the MDR or IVDR. Why? Because it is a medical device or an in vitro diagnostic medical device with an AI component. So it's a software as a medical device that have an AI component. So the good news is that no additional CE marking is required under the AI regulation, and a single notified body will issue a single certificate of conformity under the MDR or IVDR and the AI Act. Having all this information present, the question arises, what can we start doing today? In anticipation of the publication of the AI Act in the official journal, we can first verify whether our devices are high-risk systems or not. Second, increase the AI regulation literacy within our team. For example, informing about the potential impact that the AI Act will have on the organization. Very important, if your device already has CE marking under MDR or IVDR, you can reach out to your notified body to ensure they intend to comply with the AI Act also. And if they do not, please start to consider alternatives. And finally, please stay up to date about dates and developments according to the AI Act. These are the references that were used to prepare that presentation. And this is our team from the Regulatory Support Unit. And I would like to thank all of them, especially to Sandra, for the work done together. Thank you all for your presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, for your insightful presentation. So I do have here a few questions that I believe are a little bit more technical. So I will address them both to you and Sandra, and the one that feels that has the answer can reply. So to clinical, it's from Maria Marques, and she's asking if to clinical validated an in vitro medical device, the software in the medical device should be validated following the in vitro regulations, or does it need to be validated as a standalone technology?
Both. The answer is both. So even if it's an IVD, it has the same norms and standards that should be applicable to a software. So you should validate software, and also, of course, validate it as an IVD. So you should perform a performance evaluation report and also a software validation report. So the answer is both. You have to follow both requirements, okay?
Thank you. So of your very quick questions. So from Tiago Santos, he's asking if would software as a medical device require a clinical investigation of a medical device before placing in the market?
So very interesting question. The answer is it depends.
It depends.
So why? Because sometimes the preclinical testing is enough to ensure that the software is compliant with the MDR or IVDR. Okay, so basically, if it's an innovative device, and if you don't have any data, or the preclinical test is not evident enough, and of course, if he has AI, because the AI needs to be validated because it's different and the code is different, and we don't have space enough to the preclinical test to validate the clinical performance of this kind of software, the answer is yes. But if it's a normal software that the preclinical test is enough, the validation, the software validation is enough. For instance, if it has no clinical purpose by itself, it only needs a report, basically.
Okay, thank you. I think this is clear enough for the time we have. If not, I would recommend that the person could contact you and to ask for more details.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have just one more time for one more question. Actually, I have a few ones. A standalone software that already exists on the market, but only now intends to be regulated as a medical device. Is there no documentation on how the software was developed? What information must be provided to the notified body? This is a really tricky one. I'm sorry. Should all documentation be developed at new requirements, architecture, test, risk analysis? Did you understand my question?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's our normal day.
Okay. I can foresee that.
Yeah, basically, if you don't have the history, you have to make, I don't know, a quick overview about steps and document that, what you know about it. Of course, I know that you have not of the old history, but you have to make a resume of the history. This is mandatory for you to document. And Anna, please interrupt me if you.
No, you are right. Yeah.
So you have to have the history of the requirements, how to validate the, and if you don't have it, you have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So basically, the answer is you have a lot of work, but you have to make the.
So
Yeah.
the answer is you will need to comply with the annexes 2 and 3 of the medical devices regulation or in vitro diagnostics medical devices regulation. You will need to comply all the technical documentation. That's it.
Thank you. So your contacts are in the presentation that will be shared with the participants, so they can contact you later on if they have further that. So now, due to the sake of time, I will give the floor again to Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Sandra. And Anna, there are a couple more questions that are to be answered. So if you, Sandra and Anna, can write them down and answer the participants, that would be great. Thank you. So let's proceed to the last part of this webinar. And in this last part, we'll feature some examples of real world companies that are developing software as a medical device. And these are Picking Window and Digestate. So we're pleased to have Cristiana and Philippe from Picking Window, and then Miguel Mascarenhas from Digestate. Starting with Cristiana, she's an entrepreneurial service engineer, developing Picking Window, Fraunhofer Portugal ICOR spin-off, which is focused on early detection and treatment of eye disease with AI. And she's also serving as a scientist at Fraunhofer ICOS, where she's a specialist in human-centered information and communication solutions, conducting user research and collaborating with healthcare professionals to innovate digital healthcare solution. Then Philippe Soares is an AI entrepreneur at Picking Window and also a senior scientist at Fraunhofer Portugal ICOS. Is specialized in computer vision, intelligence, and decision support systems, with a focus on manufacturing and healthcare, especially in ophthalmology. Philippe's expertise includes AI research in medical imaging, particularly in computer-aided detection and diagnosis of breast cancer, and the development of retinal imaging devices. And finally, Miguel Mascarenhas, who is going to present the use case of Digestate, is a prominent gastroenterologist and an entrepreneur. He is known for founding 3 biotech startups, and one of them is Digestate. His innovative work incorporates deep learning and blockchain for digestive healthcare solutions. And as a head of the gastroenterology precision medicine unit at Hospital São João, Miguel has pioneered 8 AI technologies in gastrointestinal endoscopy. So thank you all. And now I will pass the floor to Cristiana and Philippe for the presentation.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm going to start sharing immediately my screen. Please tell me if you are seeing the full screen.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to present the experience of Picking Window. So I'll start by asking you if does anybody know how many people lived on Earth in 1960? Do you have any guess? This doesn't seem related to the topic, but you'll find out during this presentation the answer to this question. So Picking Window developed a solution that automatically analyzes fundus images using machine learning-based software to detect the signs of vision-threatening diseases, which helps eye care experts to screen and triage their patients' list more efficiently and at an earlier stage. And to give you a little context, diabetic retinopathy has a screening in place where diabetes patients undergo an eye exam yearly and an image of the back of the eye is taken. This goes to a reading center where experts look for abnormalities in the images to decide whether they might need eye care or not. And then referred patients are seen by a diabetic retinopathy expert who analyzes the clinical case to make a final diagnosis and prescribe adequate treatment. Well, in the case of glaucoma, there is no organized screening in place, and patients are discovered when an eye care professional observes their eye and finds risk factors leading to a referral. Glaucoma departments accumulate patients in the list to be seen, and this requires prescription of further diagnostic exams that are analyzed over time by the glaucoma expert until they reach a conclusive diagnosis. So the underlying problem here, in this context that I showed you, is that image analysis is a tedious and time-consuming task that is becoming unmanageable due to a decreasing number of experts and an increasing number of people with eye disease on the other side. And here's the number I was asking for in the beginning of this presentation: 2.2 billion people with vision impairment nowadays. So recalling my question, this was almost the total number of people living on Earth in 1960. So it's impressive the number of people with eye diseases nowadays. And every year there's 60 million new cases of vision loss, 90% of which could be prevented if treated timely, which would drop annual costs by 4 times. So current solutions in eye care are related to image capture, storage, and integration with electronic health records to manage patients' clinical cases. And in the last years, several machine learning-based software have emerged to tackle the challenge that I explained. And our approach, considering the immense healthcare information systems integrating clinical data that hospitals already deal with, is to fit in existing systems, enhancing the value offered by them and without complicating the adoption for the hospital management and clinical end users. So considering this integration into existing information systems, our software intends to read the DICOM images and deliver outputs according to interoperability standards. It classifies those images with binary results, and it provides image parameters helping with the clinical analysis. The ability to explain how results are achieved is critical to building trust. This enables clinicians to make informed decisions, and it contributes to the likelihood of technology adoption. So I'm now going to hand over this presentation to my colleague Philip, who is now going to frame the technology in terms of medical device certification. So please, Philip, I'll stop sharing. Now you can share.
Thank you, Christiana.
The slides.
Okay, I hope you are seeing, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Christiana. To summarize, we offer 2 software as a service for medical purpose. One for classification of referable glaucoma and the other for diabetic retinopathy. We must follow 2 independent processes of medical device certification, although the type of image is the same, it's color from the image. The type of environment where we place the software is also the same, but the applications are different, the population are quite different. Also, in terms of the medical device classes in EU MDR, also comparing the other predicative devices or comparable devices in the market, we have the class 2A. We drive mainly clinical management, and the impact of our outputs are not directly critical for patient conditions. But we also know that in order to implement a roadmap, we should follow the design and development process specification, including the risk management that was already very well presented today, and a plan to mitigate it, follow up clinical studies, identify general safety and performance requirements. So also, I would like to show a little bit that to build a strong relationship with our customers, we will do regular performance monitoring and usability testing so that we continuously optimize the solutions considering the whole AI lifecycle. We want to implement the ISO for quality management system in medical device in our company, not only having the right human resources for regulatory affairs, following the regulatory changes and the frameworks that we have in Europe, for instance, right now with the AI Act, but also very important to focus in the improvement of the system effectiveness. So we have specific focus in continuous improvement and post-market surveillance as key factors for our machine learning-based software as medical device. Also, these are some examples of how Fraunhofer has been helping us. Here for logging and monitoring of all machine learning experiments, so we can track not only when we do it in development phases, but also in clinical validation, and we'll do in follow-up, of course, phases. Also bias detection, so there are other ISOs and tools that we can use for auditing that also was presented by Inês today, and of course measure the analytical performance. Another example is related to the documentation. So documentation for model cards, data cards, like one of the cards that we have, you can see here some examples where we include some weaknesses, some limitations, some application areas and so on, and properties on how the architecture was developed. So this also brings transparency. And also we perform usability test interviews with the end users and stakeholders around this area. Comparing looking to the landscape of competitors, our differentiation relies in two unique values of privacy and diversity during the AI lifecycle process. And most solutions are classified as 2A for MDR, as I told you. We have been validating the product market fit, doing prototype testing, pursuing customer discovery activities. We are focusing right now in interoperability pilots with companies with products in the area of health information systems, growing the team, preparing investment decks, engaging with early investors, because we need the investment, most of it. It's not only to the team, but also to this process of the standardization according to the quality measurement system of a medical device company, and also to follow two independent process for certification. The team, just to finalize, we have deep knowledge in the health tech industry, and we are committed to make the first spin-off of Fraunhofer Portugal, having won several prizes in innovation contests last years. Our background are also complementary. We are looking for new team members that can join, of course, but basically machine learning, computer vision skills, usability testing, and user human-centered design, and also this of course followed by an advisory board in the area of medical device industry. We hope that this was helpful for this session, and don't lose sight of us. Thank you, and we are open for questions after the last talk.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Cristiana. I will invite now Miguel to do his presentation on Digestate, and then we'll have some time for questions.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my screen, please? Can you
Now we
confirm me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
On full screen.
So I will present Digestate. Digestate is a spin-off from the University of Porto, also a spin-off from the NIU Endless Frontier Labs 2023 and 2024 cohorts. So Digestate is a company founded back in 2020, following the filing of 6 academic patents. Currently, we have 9 patents, and the patents have been granted for 20 years in Portugal. So we developed and tested multiple pioneer algorithms. First on Hospital São João, which is the biggest GI unit in Portugal, and also in the biggest gastroenterology clinic, private clinic in Portugal. And afterwards, we expanded to the biggest proctology center in Europe, the biggest motility center in Europe as well, and the biggest hospital in the US. So we currently are in more than 40 hospitals and 9 countries throughout the world, and we have access to more than 30 million patients' data. So the problem that we aim to tackle at Digestate was the rising of gastrointestinal diseases. It is a condition that has an enormous impact on the healthcare sector, and namely on the morbid mortality, but also on the financial impact of healthcare. We also know that minimally invasive techniques are becoming the gold standard, and therefore we aim to solve multiple solutions with the deployment of AI in digestive healthcare. So we have limitations currently in capsule endoscopy, where we have more than 10-hour video footage with over 100K in the case of clone capsule endoscopy, and this requires high level of expertise, and also leads to this technique being only deployed as a first line for the small bowel, where it could be the first line if there was not the human factor of being extremely expensive, and the limitations on the sensitivity and specificity due to the number of hours of footage. And also there are limitations in cholangioscopy and endoscopic ultrasound, which are the techniques that we use for the diagnostic of biliary cancer and pancreatic cancer, where there is a poor inter-observer agreement and very limited sensitivity, which leads to very aggressive therapies in the case of benign pathologies. And also there are several limitations in high resolution endoscopy and anal rectal manometry that hinder the widespread of these techniques, leads to delayed diagnosis and to increasing waiting lists. Therefore, we were able to create 3 different branches of products. First, for non-invasive capsule endoscopy modalities, I reckon that these are all clinically validated in our centers, and right now we are doing multicentric studies, and this has been awarded by the most important medical societies, and we prove that our algorithm is 98% accurate for small bowel evaluation of lesions, and in all the digestive tract it's also capable of detect this kind of lesion, enabling the dream of an endoscopy, which means that in one exam you can access the esophagus, the stomach, the small bowel, and also the colon. In our internal studies, we have roughly 45 minutes to see a capsule if you are a very good expert, with sensitivities of 60%. With the capsule, the analysis can be done in less than 1 minute, with more than 95% sensitivity for the detection of lesions, and the same in colon capsule endoscopy and Crohn's capsule endoscopy, where we prove that our solution can work. Our solution is interoperable across systems, which allows it to be classified as a software, as a medical device, and it is compliant with the FAIR principles of findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data. Furthermore, we created technologies that not only are able to detect more lesions, but can detect what a doctor cannot. So when we look at the biliary stricture, we have 50% probability of being right. With our neural network, we proved that we are 96% capable of doing that, and this technology is already working in the United States, in the best hospital in the world for this field, in 10 sites in Spain and in Portugal as well. And we have these technologies for cholangioscopy, for endoscopic ultrasound in the case of pancreatic lesions, deep bowel for device-assisted enteroscopy, and endoscopy genius for anal cancer. Indeed, the goal of these technologies is to effectively rolling out neoplasia or precursory lesions, and also being able to provide an explainable AI model that is not only able to help us understand why the model is doing such an assessment, but also to guide optimal site for biopsies, optimal site for treatment, and even to detect residual lesion, as we were able to, for example, prove in our last publication on American College of Gastroenterology, where we proved for the first time that AI model is capable of detecting residual lesion, which the human cannot do it simply. So we are able to do fast identification of anal premalignant lesions. This enables us to receive the World Award of Gastroenterology, which is like the Nobel Prize for Gastroenterology in 2022, and also the best scientific work in all anal cancer research in 2023. And we also did this a very similar technique to electrocardiograms, but in this case for manometric pressures, where we can also automatize the reading of anal rectal manometry, where we were the first to publish and patent on this field. In this case, we are able to analyze on raw data, which allows us for our technology to be readily applicable to clinical data. So, long story short, this is an old slide. Now we have more than 200 communications and awards in the most relevant GI summits. We also publish in data science and artificial intelligence journals. We can see some of the most relevant journals, all in first quartile. And this is some of the awards we receive. We also receive, apart from this one, the best clinical work. The best research in medicine was attributed to our research last year by the National Portuguese Medical Association, but for us, more importantly, is to receive the award from American College and from the best scientific work on IBD. So right now we are proud to say that we are the most awarded team in AI in medical and engineer team AI in the world team in terms of awards by the medical societies. This is our IP roadmap. And finally, why now? So this is not really relevant for you. You know that AI is booming, and it can help the healthcare costs and the healthcare systems overload. And also in the case of GI, because it's one of the highest producer of carbon footprint in medicine, because we use carbon dioxide for endoscopy. We can also have a very important ecological footprint, and we also prove this with a pioneer publication. We have a competitive advantage against software in medical devices and software as a medical devices, and our unique selling point is basically that we are able to create solutions that the market does not have at the time, and also we are not only able to detect but differentiate lesions. Currently we are evaluated in 40 million, but we have a pledge to invest to go to 400 million after regulatory approval. And it has been an honor to work with Sandra Balseiro and Ana Brito, which have been instrumental for us, because we have received all the awards from the societies, but now we need the boring part, which is regulation. For me as a doctor, I'm an evaluator of some processes. I know that this is a very important subject, but for me it's painful because it takes a lot of time and takes time to bring these technologies to the market. And also the evaluators, even the doctors, for example, we are evaluated by FDA. The doctor was not an expert on the field, so he was an hepatologist talking about small bowel, which confuses me. So I think that we need to bring data scientists and doctors more close, because I have the sense that some technologies are being hindered in their adoption by the lack of experts on the final analysis. And I've been privileged to be in some of FDA processes by representing not only American society but European society. But I think that working with a strong regulatory team as an entrepreneur and as a doctor, which my main focus is to clearly have my technologies deployed to the patient, I firmly believe that we need to find the right regulatory partner, and IPN has been instrumental in that part, and we right now feel very confident that we will have the same success that we had in clinical application and validations from society, also on the regulatory roadmap. This is only possible because this is a team not only made by doctors but by engineers, and some of the doctors have formation in artificial intelligence, and also the engineers, they have formation in the endoscopic techniques. So we are somewhat able to speak the same language, and this has been crucial on the regulatory process because this is a very demanding task, because when you try to innovate, at the same time you need to regulate and find the right balance, and the right partners is crucial. And therefore our challenge of reaching the market and remaining competitive and compete on a global sphere. So our competition is not from Portugal, it's from the world, relies heavily on the regulation approval. And therefore I think that IPN has been a game changer for us, and we also improved our technologies with a regulatory framework which was not our cup of tea, but has grown, and some of our team members have really flourished in the last months on this part. So I'm really proud of the work that we have been developed with IPN, and hopefully you found this presentation useful. And thank you for the kind invitation. It honors Digestate, and we are really proud to work with IPN and to be able to showcase our dream and our company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you very much to you and Cristiane and Philippe for presenting us this amazing innovative technologies and softwares. So because we still have time for one last question, and given what as you've been presenting, both of you, I would like to ask you how the regulatory environment has impacted the development timeline to take your technologies into the market. So I know that probably Sandra has helped you here, but we know that the regulatory landscape is different in Portugal, in Spain, in the all European level, also the US. So how does this impact the timeline development of these technologies? It's the question is for both Miguel, Felipe, and Cristiane. So who wants to go first?
We can start maybe. Well, first of all, of course, that the need to comply with the regulatory certification hinders from reaching the market earlier. This is the first point when we think about the timeline of development of the technology. Of course, the need to comply with the regulation, the validation that is needed of the technology makes it delay the time to reach the market, and to be able sometimes even to do some pilots in the real world and in the real context. It needs to be really well framed, many times starting with the data from the past, so retrospective clinical data and stuff, especially when we are talking about healthcare space. Yes, I don't know if Philippe wants to add to my points.
Yeah, no, I think you said it all, but our experience, we are very early stage, so we are looking for the European market at the beginning, of course, taking a look on the FDA and our competitors in US. But I think Miguel, by what I saw, may have stronger experience in going to the other markets and other regulatory frameworks.
So for
Miguel,
us, it's paramount. If I have FDA approval, I could be having 40 million dollars sell. I think we are on a different part. We have already the validations. We just need the regulators to approve us.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
it's the least favorite part of digestate regulatory part.
So
Because
it's
we're able to in the words, the patents, the thing, but we'll get there. But I really think that sometimes regulation is not helping, and we as doctors, I think we have more to say, because sometimes they, for example, we will deliver a worse product to the client to make FDA happy. So I will Sandra could speak. We are like changing a product that is much better, that is using a classification, and okay, we'll give this because this will give us success on regardless, because some doctor that haven't read a capsule and doesn't hold a PhD, doesn't have publication, doesn't have whatever, is saying me that, and it in a medical society you will be murdered, because you have to be a KOL to say that. So I think FDA comes later on the approvals to the societies for us to give the opinions, and I think that FDA, if is so demanding, should put KOLs with expertise in the area. It cannot give, for example, an hepatologist, which was the guy that was evaluating us, speaking about small bowel. For example, it's the same of me speaking about laparoscopy. I cannot speak about that. It's on my field. So I would like Sandra to comment it, because we are doing an alterations to a product, and this will not help the doctors. It's just because some guy said that.
Okay, so you say this is some of the major hurdles of the developing the technology. It has to be with this specific. Okay, Sandra, would you like to comment?
Because it's true, and she knows it's true.
Basically, we have to be aware that the regulation is very, very specific. We have to validate everything that we say that the software does. And of course, normally the developers doesn't have this into account at the early stage of the development. And moreover, if it's an innovative device like Digestate had, it's difficult for us to penetrate the market, because we have to redo all the things. We are new in the market. So basically, I understand that companies have to deal with that, and of course it changed the time frame to put it on the market, because if we are talking about a European framework, we have to deal with 1 year at least for the notified body approval. So it's huge, and you normally you have to be aware that this part is fundamental, and you have to make your business plan according to this frame. So Miguel is not having a quite different roadmap, because they are aware of it, because they have in the team a regulatory person from pharma that gave them the landscape in the frame time, more or less the same thing that we are dealing with. But normally the companies have to be reminded that the time frame of regulation is huge.
So this would be a good advice, that for all the companies, it takes time. It helps to have cautious steps to take into the market, and you will find very much obstacles along the way. So this is mainly the main takeaway, maybe through this. Okay, thank you everyone. Maybe Patricia, I'll give the floor to you once more, and thank you everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of words before we close this webinar. So first of all, to all the speakers of this afternoon, thank you so much. It's been a very insightful webinar about a very complex subject, and I hope it has brought some clarities to the audience about these topics. So I think all your contributions certainly enriched the understanding of this complex intersection between these different fields. And I would also like to thank to all the attendees of this session this afternoon. And just before we close, I would like to invite you all to follow the Health Cluster Portugal, but also the IT Health through our online platforms and social networks, so you can know more about these and other initiatives that we're promoting. And again, regarding our Digital Innovation Hub, JoinHealth PT, if you're an SME, there are certainly several services that you may benefit from. So I invite you to check this project on our website. And lastly, I would like to invite you to the last webinar of this series. It will happen next week on the 14th of May, so 1 week from now. And it's about clinical evaluation for medical devices. So registration is free, but mandatory. So you may check more information about it by scanning the QR code that you're seeing on the screen. And I guess that would be all for this afternoon. I wish you all a very nice week and see you soon.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.